Hi everybody, good morning. This is Jean here, Jean Truelove from Truelove Quilts for You. I'm actually standing in front of a quilt, or a quilt that I've been making for the last 6 months. I am doing a small, not a tutorial today because I was a little bit all over the place. You must excuse me. As you know, I've not been sewing because of our situation that we find ourselves in, and we've just moved into our new home after the whole disaster of the last several years. I'm very rusty. I'm very rusty. So it's not a tutorial. It's just sort of a look over my shoulder and see what I'm doing today. That's all. As I was showing you a couple months ago, I had taken a layer cake package, 42-inch squares, one layer cake package, and made this quilt here. This looks like a Scrappy quilt, so very easy. Looks a very difficult, Scrappy quilt, but it's just in the cutting. I have a playlist which has, I think I did 2 videos so far on this quilt that I made, the body of the quilt. Today and the next video, I'm going to be showing you how I've actually done this border. I was saying I wanted to do something other than just an inner border and an outer border. Simple. That would be so easy. It's a very simple quilt. Now, what I have done is sort of like this fake scallop looking, more of a decorative border. That's all I'm doing. That's what I'm showing you today. How I've actually done this one side. I have to do it. It's not a quick border at all. But I just think it gives a very simple, easy beginner quilt, just a little bit more of a decorative edge, but without the hassle of binding a scalloped edge quilt. I can just bind this. I will be binding this with white, which I don't usually love to do, but that's okay because it still gives the illusion of a scalloped pretty edge, but without the hassle of it. So it just ends up a rectangular quilt here. What I have done is I have shown you in this video how I sort of measured, and it's very, again, not a tutorial. Don't take my word for it because you know I don't do math. But I sort of like just took the length of the length of the quilt and divided it into 3. That's all, and then made a template to how to do the scallops. Now there are on the market, I would say dozens and dozens of templates, rulers that would give you a scalloped edge, and with all of the math, the precise math involved in getting your scallops awesome. I think I have a couple of them somewhere. I don't know where they are because I haven't unpacked everything. But I just used a roll of duct tape to get the curve. Again, this is not a tutorial. Don't ask me specifics because I just winged it. But I think it turned out nice. I actually used the thing of duct tape to get the circle. What I'm saying is you can use a plate or you can use a cup or whatever. I just had that at hand. And then I just did this little pokey thing here to make it a little bit more interesting. I'll show you some close-ups of it though. I did have to get at my other Juki machine, which has a decorative setting, decorative stitches, because my one machine is only a straight stitch machine. And I did use a heavy, wide, thick satin stitch to really make this border sort of stand out. As you know, I'm the queen of blanket stitch applique, but I didn't do that because I didn't think it would stand out enough, and I quite like that. Again, it's not a quick process to do this border, but it's not all that hard. It looks hard, and maybe the way I was explaining it with the math, like I say, with the math, I don't know what I'm going to do on the corners, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the exact like mirror image of this border over on that side. I'm going to work on that now, and then I'm going to do the top and the bottom, and then I have to figure out the corners, whether I do a template. I'll show you that probably in my next video of how I do make a curve on the corners to see if they meet up or something. But this is what I've done so far. I really quite like it. Again, taking an extremely quick and easy quilt top, the quilt body to make out of a layer cake. And then I've just made it a little bit more interesting. So again, this is just over my shoulder, how I'm doing things. Don't judge. We are settling into our home. I'm in the room, this room, my sort of my funky cloud room. That is my fabric storage room and my ironing table. That end is not yet finished. My husband still has to make a few more shelves for my books and my patterns, but he's built me these shelves here and these shelves here. We're shelf people. My husband is the shelf guy, I tell you. This guy loves building shelves, and I've needed them. We've always had shelves in our home. We like to have the shelves above the doorways here also. You get a lot of storage. We had a large family, so we needed storage and, you know, stuff to put up. And you know me, I like my stuff. But we're getting settled here. Maxwell is upstairs. He's up right here. He's up the stairs. Oh, I have to tell you, if you've been following along, for the last several years, he had in our first house, and then in our second house, and then it was stored in our garage. And now it's being put upstairs. His sticker door. I think you remember he had this fabulous door that his brother Niles had started, I'd say 10 years ago, maybe longer, with stickers from all over, snowboarding and skiing and all sorts of motorcycle and quads and national parks. He had his sticker door. Well, when our house flooded, it was on his door to his office, Maxwell's. We quickly took that door off. We're like, no, we're taking the sticker door, which we actually took from our original home. We got a replacement door, but it was very special. It has been in storage. It was safe, and Ian put it into the 3rd floor. Now, this is a 112-year-old home, so the door that we obviously are not getting rid of is pure, thick, big oak, original woodwork doors. We very carefully took that door off and put it down into the basement. It's fine. Actually, there's quite a few other doors in there. There was doors that went into the kitchen. There, like 4 doors that went into our small kitchen, and it was just too much. The previous homeowner had done that, so we found the doors down there. These doors up here have all been painted white, but the doors on the 3rd floor and the 1st floor are all the natural, beautiful wood. But Maxwell is so thrilled. Ian made the hinges and the locks work, and the catches work. So he has his sticker door. He's so very thrilled. One of these days... One of these days I'm going to show you up there with his permission. But you be assured that he's doing well. Ian is doing great. We're sleeping well. We love living in our new house. It's just wonderful. I love pottering around here, trying still, because it's been such a gargantuan, emotional, physical task to move everything into this home. As you know, a move can like do you in. We've been here for what, 6 weeks now. We're still not done. The majority of it is done, but we still have lots and lots of bits to put around and things to sort out and light switches to figure out. The other night I'm thinking, why is there a bright spotlight outside my sewing room? And then there was one in the master bedroom. Bright light. I'm thinking, where the heck is it? It's up, real up tall, you know, up high. And we couldn't figure it out. Here, there's 3 sets of light switches in the family room. And Ian's turning off all these light switches. Finally, one went off. He's like, oh. So there's little things like that. But the house is proving to be just wonderful. Wonderful. We love it. All 3 of us are very happy. Our kids are making it possible for us. And we're just so thrilled and thankful. We're thankful for all of your prayers and all of your thoughts. As I always say, we're so blessed. We're blessed to have this lovely family that we can share. Again, forgive me for this all over the place video. I was very rusty, and I'm a little bit more all over the place than usual because I'm talking a lot, and I hope it makes some sense to you though, and just maybe a tip or two. So how I did, I've only done one. I got to do the rest of them. But again, I'll probably do another video. I didn't want to make this too long, and of course it's going to be long, but you guys don't mind. So again, thank you so very much for everything, you guys, and I hope you're having a blessed day. And as always, love from the Trueloves. All right, see ya. Bye-bye. So for my first little inner border, what I'm going to be using, I've already done it, I'm going to just be using this white fabric here. And all I want to do is to make a small inner border. Now, I have yardage of my fabric, okay? I'm going to, and I've already done it, I'm going to be ripping on the lengthwise grain, meaning that I need more yardage than I would if I was cutting it on the widthwise grain, meaning from selvage to selvage, the 44 inches or so. I have gotten a little bit more yardage, a couple yards, and I'm ripping it to the length of the lengthwise grain. The reason I'm doing it with this application also to do these sort of fake scallops is the lengthwise grain of a fabric does not stretch as much as the widthwise grain, okay? And that way also, if I rip my small strips and then my larger border strips from both of the fabrics, my white and my printed fabric where I'm going to make the scallops, it's not going to stretch as much. I have a little bit more control because I'm just going to be working with the borders, making my borders and then attaching them to my quilt. Now, when you rip fabric, there's 2 schools of thought when you're ripping fabric. A lot of people like to rip fabric because that gives you a nice straight cut off of the fabric, off of the bolt. It does, however, as you can see, I've ripped these strips. I don't know, I didn't even measure, about 2 1/4, 2.5 inches. I don't know what it is. Because this edge here, both edges, I start it with a scissor and then I just rip it. They get bruised. They get bruised and they get a little bit wrinkled and they get a little bit frayed and they get a little bit messed up. But I am assured that this, as opposed to cutting or as opposed to rotary cutting the length of my fabric, I'm assured that this fabric strip here with no seams that it's going on my quilt borders is absolutely straight. Now what I do is I rip my pieces, this is my little inner border, and I'm going to go to my ironing board and I'm going to spray this with a sizing or like a light starch, and I'm going to then make sure it's nice and square and straight, and I'm going to press that, really iron that well. I'm okay with that because these seams here, these edges, are going to be in the seams. This one into the body of the quilt and this one to the border. But I am going to iron that really well. I'm going to be doing that for my outer border, which is going to be the white, and I'm going to then cut my fabric, which is here. I'm going to cut this exactly the same way. I'm going to open that yardage out and I'm going to be cutting not selvage to selvage. I'm going to be cutting along the length, snipping it and ripping it, and then pressing it really well, and then I'll be showing you how I'm going to do my my fake scallops. It's going to be like a 2-layer border, but I'll get to that. So here I am working on the one side, or the one layer of my quilt border. I've already ripped and ironed these. They're about 5 or 6 inches wide. I'm not quite sure, whatever they are. And again, this is how they've come off, have been ripped from the length. And as you can see, it's a little bit wavy. Sometimes it tucks under a little bit. If you don't like that, or you're having to be incredibly precise with your seam allowance, this does impede on your seam allowance slightly. I'm not bothered, because I'm just doing this not to a pattern. I'm just winging it how I think my border will look. I have my ironing board here, my ironing table, and I'm just spraying it. I'm using let me see, this is a finish, a heavy finish from Faultless. It's a spray starch. So I'm going to be just ironing that. As you can see, it just smooths out that wrinkled side there, both sides of the seam. These seams are going to be, the edges are going to be in the seam allowance. This one's going to be attached to the actual body of the quilt, and this one is going to be the actual outside of the quilt, anyway, where I'm going to be putting my binding. So I want to starch these well anyway, but also the benefit of doing a lengthwise border, even though it takes up a little more fabric as opposed to a width, the width of the fabric border, is that you're not going to be getting any wavy borders. A lot of people say, oh, my borders got wavy. I measured real well, but that's sometimes because of the way the fabric has been woven, and you've cut it on the width, selvage to selvage. The chances of getting a not as wavy border when you rip it or cut it on the lengthwise grain is minimized. I've attached my inner piece, my inner border, to my quilt top, and having ripped them, this is about 2.5 inches or so, and I had ironed these. There's a little bruised edge there, but that one is in the seam. And now what I'm doing, I'm just going to be setting the seams, as I do on all of my seams here. I'll put that over there. And then I'm just going to roll that over. Just going to roll that up and roll that over. And I'm assured, having cut these on the lengthwise grain, that I'm not going to get any wavy parts whatsoever. Any wavy borders whatsoever. Just this is my little inner border. I guess about 2 inches or so. So I'm just going to set these seams here as I go along. That just sinks the stitches in so much nicer. Just take those extra minutes if you do a seam to set that seam, and then I'm just going to roll over the border, keeping it nice and square and nice and flat. I cut these. I'm ready to make my fake scalloped borders here. What I have done is I have my 4 pieces of what I will call my under layer, my under border, which only a little bit of the white is going to be showing to make the square edge, and then my pretty fabric, which is going to be my scalloped edge here. I've cut the just randomly, I cut this at about 6 inches. I've cut my white under border around 6 inches, and then I've cut this border here, which you're going to be seeing, at about 5.5 inches, but we will be trimming this off. So I have those two. Again, I cut these, I ripped these on the lengthwise of the fabric, using a bit more fabric, but I don't have to piece any of my borders, and I've starched them so when I'm working with them, they're not going to stretch at all. So now what I've done, I'm ending up with a border that sort of looks like this. Instead of just a scallop, I've done this little pointy thing here, just for a little bit of interest. What I did is I figured out my quilt is 66 inches long, approximately. That's with the borders. I just want to show you over here. There, hold up. There's my border, my quilt hanging up there. Okay, that's my quilt hanging up there with my little white inner border, all right? And that's about 66 inches long by about 58 inches wide. Right now, I'm just worrying about the side borders, okay? And as you know, I'm not big on math or anything like that, but what I've done to make it easier for me is I've split my two side borders, my long borders, in thirds. So 66 inches is 22 inches in thirds, right? So I have two pieces of paper here, which is, what is it, 11 inches long, okay? Oh, whatever, I ran out of sellotape. Anyway, there you go. I've just put my two pieces of paper together with some sellotape. Now, you can use any round thing you have, but I found it by accident that this roll of shipping container tape, or duct tape or Gorilla Tape, is really quite a nice curve for me. Now what I've done is I'm just going to be putting it on my paper like so, and what I find out is I can get, let me just put this here, I can get two of curves about halfway along. This is what I'm going to be ending up making, about halfway along with a pencil, just starting right at the edge, about halfway through the tape like so. It's just a nice curve there, okay? And that takes me up to I can get 4 of these out of my 2 pieces of paper, just in general. Now, this might not be perfect, because as you're sewing, some things might stretch or whatever, but you can always make your curves slightly smaller. I mean, if they have to come over like to here to make it fit. That's what I'm saying. You don't have to be mega precise with this. It's just going to look good. In order to get this, what I did here, in order to get that little pokey thing up, I just took a ruler. I'm just putting it on my board here. Let me see if, yeah, I'm in the frame. And I took the ruler like this, just lined it up like that. Well, that's on the piece of paper itself, like that. And then I just eyeballed from the down point here to, I don't know, to about there, just making a little V there, just a little bit more of an interest as opposed to just the scallop. Again, just eyeballing it. You can be real precise if you want to measure this, but I don't need to. So here I'm going to just be cutting out my curve here. Here's another one of these scallop things, okay? Now, since we're going to be appliquing this from this fabric, which is going to be the pretty part, onto the bottom layer of my white, okay? We're going to be putting this on there with the curved, just like that. So what you're going to be seeing on this quilt is the curve, because the white will recede. The dark will advance to you, the fabric that you'll see, and so it'll be the illusion of a scalloped edge. Now, if you were going to have that as your scalloped border, oh my word, you would have to use bias binding. You would have to come up here and there and fold it and make sure you have a mitered point and and then hand stitch it to the end. So you're gonna get the look of that fairly interesting border just by appliquing it. Now we are going to be stitching this top layer onto the bottom layer with an applique stitch, either a satin stitch or a blanket stitch. So you're going to have to be careful to do this. But first of all, before we get into the stitching, so I have this piece, which here is about 22 inches. It's about 22 inches long, that piece, right? Now I have to transpose that onto my fabric. But what I have done is, just to make it a little bit easier, I have actually made a cardboard out of my comic book boards. I made a cardboard template here. Oh, I've also cut this down. Sorry about that. I've also cut this down to about 4 inches, or maybe 4.5 inches. Let me just see this ruler here. That's about 4 inches from this point here to this edge here to about that top edge there. Okay, so yeah, it's about 4 inches. So I will be cutting this out, even though we cut that at about 5.5 inches. That's what you're going to be seeing when I cut it out, when I transpose it. But for now, what I'm going to do, I have my card. I have my cardboard. I'm going to take my pattern here, and I'm going to transpose it onto my card. Mess about with these shapes in a minute. So I'm just going to cut this out like this onto my card so I can see it a little bit better. So here is my cardboard template right here. Now, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to cut these at 66 inches. Okay? So I'm going to cut them because that's approximately what my quilt measures, the side measures. These are just for the 2 side borders I'm working on right now. I just want about 1 inch up there. And then very carefully, I'm going to take a pen. You can do this with a marker, and I'm going to very carefully mark my back side of my fabric. And now I'm going to cut out my piece of fabric here. Here's my border, which when I put it on the bottom border, it's really going to pop, as you can see. Pieces, my border pieces here, and then I will show you as I applique the outer border, the upper border, onto my lower border. But my next video I'm going to show you, I use Elmer's glue to affix this border here to my white. I just use a dab of Elmer's glue. As you know, I love my Elmer's glue, just to keep that on there. And then as you can see, I had used a very strong red satin stitch thread and stitching for my fake scallop border there. Now, whenever you applique anything, you have to have a bit of stabilizer behind your stitching, because when you're stitching so very, very thick, any kind of applique, especially a thick satin stitch as this is, I wanted this to be prominent, your fabric has a tendency to gather nasty little bunches together. So you need a stabilizer on the back of your fabric here where the stitches are. Now, in an ideal world, if I could find it, I have like a tearaway interfacing stabilizer, I should say, tearaway stabilizer, where you stitch with that on the back in a pinch, which I just did because I can't find it, I use a piece of paper. I just used a piece of copy paper, cut about that wide, and then I just stitched it. And that just gives the back stitches, as you can see, I use white thread on the back. I have good tension on my machine because I use white thread and none of it's showing on my red. So be careful. That paper just tears right away. I just use copy paper. Now the only thing is, I will probably change my needle probably twice in this project, putting my borders on, because the copy paper does dull the needle a little bit. But there's my sort of fake looking scalloped edge quilt border with it just is a little sort of an interesting border. All right, folks, thanks a lot. See you later. Love from the Trueloves. Bye bye.